The night hums softly above. Oh, the stars are not silent. They whisper in languages older than dreams, shimmering in gentle waves across the velvet sky. A breeze passes through the grasslands, carrying the faint perfume of candy blossoms and the echo of laughter long faded. Somewhere in the distance, the tree fort stands, wooden and weathered, glowing faintly with the warmth of two souls who once believed the world was endless. Pause. Finn is asleep, his sword resting beside him. Jake lies coiled like a golden river at the edge of the bed, his slow breaths rising and falling in rhythm with the flickering lamp. The night wraps around them like a great cosmic blanket, and for a moment, everything in existence feels perfectly balanced. Two beings sharing one heartbeat, one dream. This is not merely a story about friendship. It is about the invisible thread that ties two spirits together through time, through laughter, through silence. It is the secret music that plays when words are no longer needed. The hidden magic between Finn and Jake Oars. They met, as legends tell, by chance. But perhaps it was never chance. In the unseen weave of the cosmos, their meeting was a star aligning with another, forming a constellation that would guide countless souls. From that first day, Jake's calm matched Finn's fire. Where one reached forward, the other stretched around, and together they formed a kind of wholeness. Have you ever felt that? The quiet sense that someone, somewhere, balances your rhythm? Like a wave finding its shore or a flame finding its wick. That is the thread we speak of tonight. Not seen, but deeply felt. The magic of Ooh has many forms. Some glow brightly, ice crowns, candy spells, elemental forces. But some magic is soft, hidden in the space between things. The kind that lives in the pause between two breaths, shared by friends sitting under the stars. Finn and Jake's bond was that kind of magic. It wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. When Finn laughed, Jake's heart expanded like light across the sky. When Jake worried, Finn's hand found his paw without thought. It was the kind of connection that time could not rust, because it was forged not of moments, but of meaning. One evening, long after the land of Ooh had fallen into quiet peace, the two sat at the top of a hill overlooking the valley. Fireflies danced below them like lost stars returning home. Jake spoke first, his voice slow and low. "Finn, you ever wonder what makes us—" "Us?" Finn smiled, eyes fixed on the horizon. "You mean like why we're bros?" Jake chuckled. "Yeah, but more than that. Like what keeps it all together? After all the weirdness, all the endings and beginnings, why do we still understand each other?" The question hung in the air like a feather caught in moonlight. Finn didn't answer right away. He felt the weight of years, adventures, losses, growth, all suspended in that single thought. Maybe the answer wasn't something that could be said. Maybe it was something that could only be felt. That is where the hidden magic lies. In the spaces language cannot reach. When the world changes, kingdoms rise. Memories fade, even bodies age and stretch and bend. There remains something untouched beneath it all. The quiet knowing that in the grand story of existence, there are a few souls whose light reflects your own. Perhaps the universe itself is a great body, and every bond, every friendship, every act of love is one of its pulses. When Finn and Jake laugh together, the stars blink. When they fight, the oceans sigh. When they rest, the world sleeps easier. It may sound like myth, but in myth and truth are siblings. Pause. Do you ever think about your own threads? The unseen connections weaving through your life? The people whose presence shapes you, whose absence echoes in your dreams? Sometimes the strongest magic doesn't cast spells or summon power. It simply holds. In the oldest stories of the land, there is said to be a tapestry woven by time herself.
Every hero, every villain, every creature, all bound together in its endless pattern.
Most threads shine alone, fading as they stretch, but some, rare ones, intertwine so deeply that their colors merge, creating something brighter, stronger. Finn and Jake's bond is one such knot in the weave. Their adventures were not just quests through forests or dungeons. They were explorations of each other's souls. Finn's courage was a flame, often too bright, sometimes reckless. Jake's wisdom was a river, slow, patient, deep. Each needed the other to balance the flow. Together they faced monsters that mirrored their fears, lands that tested their hearts, and futures that demanded change. Through it all, the thread held. Because the truth is simple, they loved each other. Not in the way of romance or words, but in the quiet, holy way that one soul recognizes another as home. There was a night, long ago, when Finn couldn't sleep. He stood by the window, watching rain slide down the glass like melting stars. Jake stirred beside him, half awake. "Can't sleep, buddy?" Jake murmured. "Just thinking," Finn whispered.
About, what happens after? Jake yawned. After what? After all this?
"The quests, the stories, the tree fort, us," Jake smiled lazily.
Man, you think too much. After's just another before, waiting to happen. But Finn didn't smile. No, I mean...
What if one day you're gone? What if one day I wake up and you're not here anymore? Pause. Jake sat up, his body shifting softly into a shape that wrapped around Finn like a warm blanket.
Then I'll still be here.
Maybe not in this way, but somewhere in the weave. You'll look at the clouds and they'll be kind of Jake-shaped. You'll hear a song in the wind and it'll sound like my voice.
That's the magic, dude. We don't end, we just...
Change channels, Finn's eyes glistened.
That's kind of beautiful, Jake chuckled.
It's the jazz of existence. You just got to listen. That conversation stayed with Finn for the rest of his days. The older he grew, the more he felt the truth in Jake's words. Life was not a straight line, but a melody. Every note, every friendship, every goodbye, part of a larger song. The hidden magic wasn't about holding on forever. It was about trusting the rhythm, knowing that even when the melody changed, the harmony remained. When Finn finally learned to rest, not as a warrior, not as a hero, but as a being simply alive, he realized that Jake had been right all along. Love is not lost. It is transformed. Pause. And so the night deepened and the stars dimmed.
A hush fell over the land, as though the entire world was breathing in unison with two sleeping souls.
Somewhere in the endless fabric of the cosmos, two threads glowed faintly, still entwined. In every story that would follow, in every dream whispered by the wind, the echo of their laughter lingered, a promise that even in the quietest corners of time, connection endures. The moon rose higher, soft as a lullaby. The tree fort creaked in the wind, its branches swaying like slow dancers. In the distance, the Candy Kingdom shimmered under dew. All of Ooo seemed at peace, held gently in the cradle of the night. If one listened closely, beyond the crickets and the sigh of leaves, one might almost hear them. The faint hum of the thread between stars, still singing the story of two brothers, two souls, forever linked. Pause. Tomorrow would bring new wonders, new reflections, of how their magic shaped the world, and how the world, in turn, shaped them. But for now, the only task was rest, for even heroes need sleep. Dawn had not yet broken. The horizon was a faint bruise of violet and pearl, trembling on the edge of awakening. The air was cool, scented with damp earth and faint sweetness from the Candy Kingdom far away. Finn and Jake still slept, but the world around them began to hum, a sound so gentle It could have been mistaken for silence itself. Pause. If you have ever listened closely to true silence, you know it is never empty. Beneath the hush of early morning there is always a vibration, a pulse older than the sun. In Ooh, that pulse was stronger. It moved through stones, through trees, through the souls of sleeping heroes. It was the song beneath the silence, and tonight it wanted to be heard. Jake stirred first. His body stretched with a soft ripple, limbs lengthening and curling until he reached the window. Outside, the grass shimmered with dew, like a million tiny mirrors catching a secret light. He whispered, half to himself. "You hear that, buddy?" Finn mumbled from the bed.
Hear what?
"The quiet," Jake said. "It's singing." Pause. And indeed, if one listened with the heart rather than the ears, the silence was full of music. Long, low notes woven with distant memories. The song carried the rhythm of every friendship, every goodbye, every heartbeat that had ever echoed through the land of Ooh. Finn sat up, rubbing his eyes. "You think it's magic?" Jake smiled.
Everything's magic, man.
"Some of it's just shy." There was once an ancient being, so the story goes, who wandered the deserts of time carrying a harp made of moonlight. He never played it aloud. He simply held it close and let the wind brush its strings. The world mistook his silence for emptiness, but in truth, he was playing the same melody that now floated through Ooh's dawn. The quiet song of connection. It is said that when two souls truly understand one another, the universe hums in agreement. Perhaps that is why Finn and Jake could always find each other, even when lost in different dimensions or dreams. Their bond was a frequency all its own. Pause. Every laugh, every shared glance, every unspoken thought, all notes of a cosmic duet. As they stepped outside, the grass bent softly under their feet. The world seemed to hold its breath, waiting. Jake closed his eyes, stretching his ears like antennae toward the sky. Finn followed, still unsure what they were listening for. And then he felt it. A low warmth rising through his chest, a memory without words. It was the sound of every adventure they'd ever shared, compressed into one heartbeat. The whisper of rain in the Fire Kingdom, the crash of waves from the ice sea, the rustle of leaves in their old tree fort. It was all there, singing gently beneath the silence. "Whoa," Finn breathed.
It's like everything's alive, Jake chuckled. Told ya.
"The universe likes to jam." Pause. The hidden song spoke of balance, of how laughter and sorrow are notes in the same chord, how endings give birth to beginnings. When Finn was a boy, he thought music was just sound, something you make with your mouth or an instrument. But now, standing in the hush of dawn, he realized that music was also how the world breathed. Every choice, every moment of kindness or courage, created ripples that joined this endless melody. He thought of the times he had been afraid, when he had fought monsters larger than mountains, when he had faced himself in the mirror of destiny. In each of those moments, Jake had been there, humming some silly tune or cracking a joke, grounding the chaos. Maybe Jake had always known about this song, had always heard what Finn could not. Jake opened one lazy eye. You ever notice how we never really need to plan what we do?
We just know.
"Yeah," Finn said.
It's like we're two parts of one brain. More like one vibe, Jake laughed.
"You're the spark, I'm the groove. Together we make the beat," Finn grinned. "So what happens when the beat stops?" Jake looked toward the horizon where the first light was spreading. "It doesn't. It just changes time signature." Pause. The breeze passed through the trees, and for a heartbeat, It sounded exactly like laughter. There is a lesson in that moment about how silence is never truly empty. When something ends, its echo continues. The quiet after laughter is not loss. It is resonance. So many beings in Ooh had come and gone. The Ice King, Bubblegum, Marceline, the very spirits of the elements themselves. Yet their echoes still shaped the world. Even the air remembered. And perhaps that is what immortality really means. Not endless life, but endless sound. To exist is to be heard, even after the voice fades. Pause. As the sun began to rise, Finn and Jake walked down the hill toward the river. Mist curled above the water like soft breath. Jake shifted into a boat without thinking. Finn climbed in, and they drifted along the current. The water glimmered gold under the newborn light. Finn dipped his hand into the river. "Feels warm today," Jake nodded. "That's the world saying good morning." They floated in silence for a long time, listening to the song beneath everything, the whisper of water against wood, the murmur of wind through reeds, the distant hum of candy citizens waking. It was all one melody, effortless and eternal. Sometimes we forget to listen. The noise of thoughts, of worries, of plans, drowns out the music of simply being. But in moments like this, drifting, breathing, unguarded, the song returns. It is always there, waiting patiently for us to remember. Finn leaned back.
You think it ever stops?
Jake shook his head. Nah, even in the quietest places, the tune keeps playing. You just gotta slow down enough to hear it. Pause. That was Jake's gift, the ability to stretch time, not just with his body, but with his spirit, to make every moment wide enough for peace to enter. Finn admired that. His own energy had always been fire, rushing forward. Jake was water, flowing around every obstacle. Together they created harmony, flame and tide, rhythm and spark. The river led them to a grove of trees, so old their roots formed arches above the water. They ducked beneath, entering a green twilight where dust motes floated like tiny suns. Here the song grew clearer, as if the forest itself were humming. Jake whispered, "This place remembers." And Finn knew what he meant. The trees had witnessed everything. Wars, loves, laughter, goodbyes. They had absorbed the vibrations of centuries and turned them into quiet wisdom. Every leaf was a record of life, every branch a stanza in the grand composition. Finn reached out to touch the bark.
Do you think we'll be remembered like that?
Jake smiled. "Buddy, memory's just another verse. We're already part of the song." Pause. They lingered in the grove until the sun stood high. Then, slowly, they made their way back home. The day unfolded gently, like a long exhale. Finn fixed a patch on his backpack. Jake brewed something that smelled suspiciously like bacon and flowers.
Everything was calm, but beneath the calm was movement, a rhythm of life continuing. That is how the hidden magic works, quietly, constantly, even when unseen.
It doesn't ask for worship or recognition. It simply hums on, keeping the world connected. As evening approached, Finn sat outside, watching the sky turn from gold to rose to indigo. The day's song began to fade into night's softer notes. Jake joined him, two silhouettes against the horizon. Finn said softly, "You ever think the stars are listening?" Jake grinned.
Of course, dude. They're part of the band. They both laughed, not loudly,
but enough to make the stars shimmer just a bit brighter. And so the day closed as it began, with silence that was full of sound, with friendship that was full of light. Somewhere between the notes, between the breaths, the true essence of their bond glowed, the hidden rhythm that would never fade. Pause. The world of Ooh slept again, but its dreams were full of music. The rivers whispered, the mountains sighed, and deep within the tree fort, two old friends dreamed in tune. If you listen now, even here, Beyond their story, you might still hear it, the faint melody of connection echoing in the quiet corners of your own heart. Night had fallen again over the land of U. The moon swam slowly across a sea of clouds, silver light washing over forests and ruins alike. From the high window of the tree fort, Finn gazed at the sky as though searching for something half forgotten. Jake was already asleep, his body stretched and coiled around the room like a golden spiral. The faint sound of his breathing filled the air, a rhythm so familiar that Finn's heart seemed to beat in sync with it. But sleep would not come easily tonight. The song they had heard that morning, the music beneath the silence, still echoed faintly in his chest. It felt like an unanswered question, a whisper, urging him towards something hidden within Oz. Finn lay back, letting his eyes drift shut. The room dissolved around him like mist. He felt himself falling softly, not through air, but through thought. Down, down, into the quiet waters of dream. At first, the dream looked like their tree fort, only gentler. Its wooden walls glowed faintly from within, as though lit by memory itself. Outside, the forest shimmered in slow motion, every leaf drifting like a sigh. Jake was there too, lounging in the corner. But when Finn looked closer, something was different. Jake's eyes were calm, almost ancient. "Hey," Finn said, uncertain. "You dreamin' too?" Jake smiled. "Kinda, but not in the way you think."
This ain't just your dream, buddy.
"It's ours." Pause. The floor beneath them rippled like water. The whole room shifted, melting into an endless expanse of mirrored surface, a lake so still that the stars above and their reflections below were indistinguishable. Finn stepped carefully onto it. Each step sent soft waves across the mirrored water, and as he moved, his reflection followed, but slightly delayed, as though thinking for itself. Jake joined him, padding lightly across the glassy surface. His reflection smiled too, but the smile lingered even after he turned away. Finn frowned.
Jake?
"You seeing this?" Jake nodded slowly. "Yeah, guess we're meeting our reflections." The mirrored versions of themselves began to move, not menacingly, but curiously. Finn watched as his reflection stood straighter, older somehow, eyes full of quiet understanding. Jake's mirror self stretched taller, his form glowing faintly like molten gold. For a moment, neither pair spoke. The air was thick with something sacred, that quiet, fragile recognition that happens when one truly sees themselves. Then the older Finn smiled and said softly, "You've come far." The real Finn blinked.
You me? In a way, said the reflection.
"I'm the version of you that learned to see." Pause. The words rippled through the air like bells underwater. Jake's reflection spoke next. His voice deeper and slower, carrying a kind of peace that only time could teach. "You've been running a long time, little dude, searching for the meaning of all that you are. But you already found it every time you chose love over fear." Finn looked between them, confused. "What do you mean?" The mirror Finn stepped forward, his feet not disturbing the surface at all. "Oh, you thought your adventures were about the world, saving it, fixing it, fighting for it. But they were always about understanding yourself. Each monster was a shadow of something inside you. Each friend, a reflection of something you could be." Finn's breath caught. "Even Jake?" Jake's reflection smiled. "Especially Jake." Pause. The mirrored lake shimmered, and images began to appear across its surface, fragments of memory. Finn saw himself as a child, running through meadows with Jake at his side.
Then older, sword in hand, eyes fierce.
Then older still, sitting quietly beneath a tree, watching the sunset. Each version of himself glowed for a moment before dissolving. Jake murmured, "Whoa, it's like the dream's showing us."
Us, Finn nodded slowly. I think it's trying to tell us something.
And as he said it, he realized, every reflection, every image, it wasn't just about who he was, but who he had been with. Jake was there in all of them, sometimes beside him, sometimes ahead, sometimes behind, but always there. Their bond had shaped every version of him. The mirror. Finn spoke again. You sought purpose in adventure, but your truest quest was never out there. It was within the bond that held you steady through it all. Finn's eyes softened.
So, all this time, the real treasure was, Jake interrupted gently, grinning. Don't say it, dude.
Too cliché, even his reflection laughed. The sound rolling like warm thunder. Pause. But the truth hung in the air nonetheless. The treasure was connection. The simple, infinite act of being known. They stood together on that glassy lake as ripples of light spread outward. The mirrored versions began to fade, but not before leaving a final message. You are not separate, they said in unison. You never were. What you see in each other is what the universe sees in you. And then they were gone. The water still again, reflecting only the stars. Finn exhaled.
Man, that was heavy, Jake nodded.
Yeah, like dream therapy heavy. Finn chuckled softly, though his heart was trembling. He realized how much of himself was mirrored in Jake. Courage and kindness, fire and calm. Without Jake, those parts might have scattered, lost in the noise of the world. Maybe that's what real friendship is. A mirror, polished by time, showing you who you truly are when you forget. Pause. The dream shifted. The stars above began to descend one by one, settling on the mirrored lake like lanterns on water. Each light hummed faintly, a note of the same cosmic song they'd heard before. Finn knelt beside one, touching its surface. It pulsed gently beneath his fingers, sending warmth up his arm. In that instant, he saw flashes, not of battles or victories, but of laughter, of rest, of quiet mornings with Jake making pancakes too thick to chew. He smiled. Yes, these stars remember too. Jake leaned over, watching his reflection ripple beside him. Maybe memories are just light that forgot how to stop shining. Finn looked up at the endless sky, filled with reflections of reflections. And maybe dreams are mirrors that show us how to listen. Pause. The lake began to glow brighter. Finn felt the pull of waking, the gentle tug of dawn calling him back to the surface of consciousness. "Hey, Jake," he said softly, "when we wake up, you think we'll remember this?" Jake grinned. "We'll remember the feeling at least. That's the part that matters." The dream began to dissolve, stars folding into darkness, reflections merging back into one. Finn felt Jake's warmth beside him, steady and grounding, as the mirrored world faded completely. When he opened his eyes, sunlight streamed through the tree-fort window. Jake was snoring softly, a pancake stuck to his belly. The scent of syrup filled the air. Finn smiled, blinking away the remnants of dreamlight. For a moment he saw two suns shining, one in the sky, and one reflected in Jake's golden fur. The words from the mirror echoed faintly in his mind. "You are not separate." He didn't need to understand them completely. It was enough to feel their truth. Deep, quiet, and endlessly kind. Pause. Outside, the world stirred. Birds sang. The wind carried the scent of candy flowers. Everything was exactly as it should be, ordinary and magical all at once. Finn turned to Jake and whispered,
"Thanks for being my mirror, dude." Jake half woke, mumbling,
"Thanks for being my reflection, bro." They both laughed sleepily, the sound mingling with the morning breeze. And somewhere, in the realm of dreams, still echoing behind their eyes, the mirrored lake shimmered once more, content, complete, at peace. That night, as they watched the sunset from their hill, Finn felt lighter. He didn't need to search for answers anymore. The song beneath the silence, the mirror of dreams, they were all parts of the same truth. Connection is not found. It is remembered. Pause. The moon rose, bright and benevolent. Finn and Jake leaned back against the grass, watching its reflection ripple in the river below. 2 moons, 2 souls, 1 light. And as they drifted towards sleep, the world seemed to whisper their names, softly and eternally, as if the stars themselves were saying, "You are home." The morning came soft and grey.
as if the sky itself had forgotten how to wake.
Mist lay across the valley like a quiet thought that refused to leave. The air was damp and cool. Each blade of grass carried the scent of rain not yet fallen. From their hilltop home, Finn and Jake watched the fog roll through the trees. It looked like the world was dreaming again, and maybe it was. In Ooh, dreams were never confined to sleeping minds. They wandered freely, curling around rivers, stones, and stars. Finn stretched, feeling the pull of muscles still shaped by adventures long past. Jake yawned so wide that the sound seemed to echo off the clouds. "Want to go somewhere today?" Finn asked. Jake blinked lazily. "Where to?" Finn smiled. "Nowhere in particular. Just follow the river, see where it takes us." Jake's eyes lit up. "Now that's my kind of plan." Pause, and so they went. Two travelers carried by curiosity, following the slow and shimmering path of the river that wound through Ooh like a silver ribbon. At first, the journey was quiet. The river gurgled softly, whispering to itself as it passed over smooth stones. Birds sang faint, melancholy notes from somewhere unseen. Finn trailed his hand in the water as they walked beside it, feeling its cool touch, gentle but insistent, always moving forward. Jake watched him with a small smile. "You ever notice how rivers never stop?" Finn shrugged. "Yeah, guess they can't." "Maybe," Jake said, "but maybe they just don't want to. Maybe moving's their way of remembering where they've been." Finn tilted his head. "How do you mean?" Jake picked up a pebble and tossed it into the water. "See that ripple? It's memory. The river keeps it, even after it's gone." Pause. Finn thought about that as they walked. The idea that water could remember, that every ripple, every reflection carried echoes of all that had touched it, felt both comforting and strange. Maybe the same was true for them. Maybe the world remembered everything they had done, every laugh, every kindness, every moment of courage in ways they couldn't see. The further they went, the wider the river became. Its surface reflected the pale sky like liquid glass. Occasionally, they saw fragments of things within it, shapes that weren't entirely from this world. Once Finn caught the faint outline of a ship drifting beneath the surface, sails woven of mist. Another time he saw 2 children laughing, chasing fish made of light. "Are those memories?" he asked. Jake nodded. "Old ones. Rivers carry 'em like songs. Sometimes they hum 'em back when the world's quiet enough to listen." Finn knelt by the bank, eyes following the current.
"You think the river remembers us?"
Jake grinned.
"It better."
"We've saved it, surfed it, and fell into it more times than I can count." They both laughed, but the thought lingered, that perhaps every drop of water held a tiny record of everything it had ever touched. Pause. The day grew warmer. Sunlight began to pierce the mist, scattering rainbows across the water. They came upon a bend in the river where the current slowed and widened into a pool surrounded by tall willows. The trees leaned over as if listening to the whispers below. "This spot looks familiar," Finn said. Jake squinted. "It should. This is where we camped that summer, remember? The time you tried to catch a fish with your bare hands and got bit instead." Finn laughed.
Oh yeah, man, that feels like a lifetime ago. Jake lay down in the grass.
"Maybe it was."
But the river remembers, so it's still here. Pause. Finn sat beside him, staring at the gentle eddies circling in the pool.
He wondered how many versions of himself had stood in that same place. Boy, hero, wanderer, dreamer. The river had seen them all. And though time had carried each version away, their reflections lingered in its flow. Maybe that's what memory really was. Not a static picture, but a current that keeps moving, reshaping itself yet always containing what came before. Finn leaned back, closing his eyes. He could hear it now, the subtle murmur beneath the splash and hum of the river. It was like a voice, speaking without words. When he focused, he could almost make out fragments, laughter, footsteps, echoes of old songs sung around campfires. He even thought he heard his own younger voice shouting, "Adventure time!" carried faintly by the water's rhythm. He smiled, eyes still closed. Jake rolled onto his side, watching him.
You hear it too, huh? Yeah, Finn whispered. It's like everything we were is still flowing here. Jake nodded slowly. That's because memories don't live in our heads, man.
They live in the places that held 'em. Pause. As afternoon bled into evening, the light turned golden and soft. The river glowed like molten amber. Finn and Jake followed it farther, until they reached a small wooden bridge half swallowed by moss. It was old, older than either of them could remember. But the moment Finn stepped onto it, a strange familiarity washed over him. He turned to Jake. "Didn't we
fight someone here once?"
Jake thought for a moment, then nodded. "Yeah, the river troll who wanted tolls in riddles. You beat him with that goofy dance move." Finn laughed so hard he nearly fell off the bridge.
"Oh, Golb, that was years ago. I can't believe I remember that." "The river helped," Jake said, grinning.
"It keeps the pieces we drop." They stood in the middle of the bridge, watching the current swirl beneath their feet. The water was darker now, deeper, filled with hidden reflections of twilight. Finn saw flickers of his own past battles there, moments of bravery and fear, joy and loss.
And somewhere within the reflections he saw Jake, always there, stretching, laughing, protecting. The river wasn't just showing him his memories, it was showing him theirs. "Hey, Jake," Finn said softly. "Do you ever think about what'll happen when we're gone? I mean, when we're not around anymore?" Jake rested his chin on the railing.
"Sometimes, but I figure the river'll remember us. And if it doesn't, the stars will, or the wind. Something always does." Finn frowned. "But what if it all fades someday? What if nobody remembers?" Jake smiled faintly. "Then maybe that's the point. Maybe remembering isn't about being remembered by others. Maybe it's about how deeply we remember to love while we're here." Pause. The simplicity of it struck Finn like a gentle truth. To be remembered by the world mattered less than remembering the world with open eyes while it was still within reach. He thought of all the faces they'd met, heroes, villains, friends, strangers, and realized how each had shaped him, how each had added their note to the music of his life. The river was only reflecting what already existed inside him. As night crept closer, fireflies began to bloom in the darkening air. Their glow mirrored the stars now awakening above. The river caught both lights and merged them so that sky and water became one infinite reflection. Jake shifted into a small boat again, motioning for Finn to climb in. "Come on, dude, let's see where the night takes us." Finn settled into the boat, and Jake floated lazily downstream. The current carried them without effort, as though the river itself wanted to cradle them a little longer. They drifted in, silence, the sound of rippling water blending with the soft chirping of crickets. The world felt impossibly gentle. Pause. Finn whispered, "You ever feel like the river's talking to you?" Jake nodded. "All the time. It just says the same thing over and over." "What's that?" Jake's eyes glimmered under the starlight. "Keep going." The simplicity of those words settled deep in Finn's heart. Keep going. Through joy, through sorrow, through change. Keep going. The river never fought its direction. It simply flowed, trusting that every bend led somewhere worth finding. Maybe that was the secret of peace. Not holding on, not forcing meaning, but moving with grace through the current of time. Finn looked at Jake, and for a moment it was as though he saw their entire journey reflected in his friend's eyes. From the wild laughter of their youth to the quiet companionship of now, everything they had been still flowed within them, unchanged at the core. The river would remember, but so would they. Pause. As they floated farther, mist began to rise again, wrapping them in silver haze. The world grew softer, dreamlike. Finn felt sleep tugging at his edges. Jake's voice came from somewhere close but distant, like a lullaby. "You know, buddy, I think when we sleep, the river dreams about us too." Finn smiled, eyes closing. "Then maybe it dreams us right back into tomorrow." And the river carried them onward, its song merging with the night. A melody of movement, memory, and endless return. The stars shimmered above, and below their reflections shimmered too, until no one could tell where sky ended and water began. The world, it seemed, remembered everything. Pause. When dawn came again, they awoke where the river met the sea. The horizon stretched endless and golden. Waves lapped gently against the shore, whispering the same message that Jake had spoken in the night. Keep going. Finn stood at the edge of the tide, watching the waves erase their footprints, one by one. And for the first time, he didn't feel sadness at what was lost. The water didn't destroy, it renewed. Every moment, every memory carried forward in another form. The river remembered. The sea would too. He turned to Jake, smiling softly. "Guess that's the trick, huh?" Jake tilted his head. "What trick?" "Letting the world remember for you." Jake chuckled. "Yeah, man, that's what makes life easy to float through." They laughed together, the sound carried by the wind, by the waves, by the river that remembered. The tide had faded behind them, and the sea hummed like a heartbeat. The horizon shimmered in pale gold. Morning light lay across Ooh like a thin veil, stretching endlessly across dunes, forests, and ruins, half swallowed by time. Finn and Jake walked along the damp sand, their footprints appearing and disappearing beneath the waves. Every step seemed to echo in two worlds. One seen, one remembered. For a while, neither spoke. There was only the slow rhythm of their breathing, the quiet rush of water returning to the deep. Pause. Somewhere in that silence, Finn felt a strange stillness.
Not in the air, but beneath it, as though the earth itself were holding its breath, waiting. He knelt, pressing a hand to the sand. "Do you feel that?" Jake stretched his ears toward the ground, listening. "Yeah, it's like sleeping."
"The world?" Jake nodded. "Yeah, time itself. Just taking a nap, maybe." They both laughed softly, but Finn couldn't shake the feeling that Jake might be right. They began to climb the dunes beyond the shore. Each crest they passed revealed another landscape more ancient than the last. Dry riverbeds like scars, stone towers folded into the earth, the remnants of civilizations lost to the slow turning of ages. Finn stared at them, awe and melancholy mixing in his chest. You think these places remember too? Like the river? Jake looked around. Nah. I think they dream instead. Finn smiled faintly. Dream? Jake nodded. Yeah. You ever notice?
How ruins feel kinda peaceful. Like they're not sad about being forgotten, they're just resting.
Dreaming about the lives that passed through 'em. Pause. That thought stayed with Finn as they walked. Maybe the world wasn't dying or losing itself. Maybe it was only sleeping, waiting to be remembered again. Time, he realized, didn't
move in a straight line. It curved like the river, like the sky at dusk.
It folded upon itself, wrapping past and future into one endless breath, and somewhere deep within that breath, the spirit of every story, every face, every feeling still slumbered, waiting to rise once more. They reached the top of a hill where the wind carried a low hum. The sound wasn't quite music, but it had rhythm, a pulse too deep for human ears. Finn looked down. Beneath their feet, a great pattern spiraled across the land, rings of stone old as memory. Each circle hummed faintly with the same resonance that filled the air. Jake whistled. Whoa! It's like a giant clock, buried under the ground. Finn crouched beside the stones, tracing the grooves with his fingers. They were warm, pulsing faintly. It's still alive, he murmured. Jake stretched his body into a circle, mimicking the shape. Think it measures time? Finn thought for a moment. No. I think it sleeps it. Pause. The idea made sense in a way that words couldn't explain. If time could move, then it could also rest. And perhaps these ancient stones were the pillows where centuries laid their heads. He closed his eyes and listened. For a moment, the hum grew louder, surrounding him. He could almost hear echoes of other ages, voices speaking languages he didn't know, laughter, the sound of doors closing in cities that no longer stood, and beneath it all, a steady rhythm, the heartbeat of a sleeping world. Jake lay down in the grass, eyes half-lidded. Feels nice, huh? Like we're lying on the chest of something big and old. Finn smiled. Yeah, like the planet itself. Jake grinned lazily. Maybe it dreams about us too. Pause. Finn thought about that. The idea that time itself might be dreaming. That the future wasn't something waiting ahead, but something curled beneath them, like a cat asleep. If that were true, then every now and then when the world stirred, when an adventure began or a miracle happened, maybe that was time turning in its sleep. And the heroes, the dreamers, the wanderers, they were simply the ones who woke up inside that dream. The afternoon sun warmed their faces as they lay there. The hum beneath them grew softer, as if responding to their calm. Finn stared at the clouds drifting above. Each one seemed to move slower the longer he watched, until it felt like the sky itself was pausing to rest. You ever think, he said, that maybe we rush too much? The time only feels fast because we forget to breathe with it? Jake's eyes opened a little. You mean like, time's not the problem, it's us? Finn nodded. Yeah, we chase it, try to grab it, but it just wants us to sit beside it, to nap with it. Jake laughed softly. Man, I could get behind that philosophy. Pause. And maybe that was the truth. Maybe the pace of peace was simply the speed of rest, As dusk began to fall, they descended from the hill and found a hollow where the stones grew smaller, forming a shallow basin. In its center stood a single tree, tall and silver, its bark glimmering faintly in the half-light. The branches reached upward, holding hundreds of small glass-like fruits that pulsed with dim light. Finn approached slowly. Whoa! What is this place? Jake tilted his head. Maybe the fruit are ours? Finn blinked. Ours? Jake nodded. Yeah, like time that hasn't been used yet. Just hanging around, waiting to drop. Pause. It was an absurd thought, but it fit. Everything here felt suspended. A space between waking and dreaming, where seconds didn't tick, but breathed. Finn reached up, touching one of the glowing fruits. It was cool beneath his fingers, yet soft like a pulse. When he pressed gently, a faint vision shimmered within it. An image of himself and Jake, laughing in another time. He drew his hand back.
They really are ours, he whispered. Jake looked up at the branches, smiling.
Guess that means time grows back, huh? Finn laughed softly. Yeah, like fruit. They rested beneath the silver tree for a while, saying little. The air smelled faintly of rain and old stories. The hum of the sleeping stones wrapped around them like a lullaby. Finn leaned back, his head against the roots. He could feel the pulse of time beneath him, steady, patient, eternal. Maybe this was what the world had always wanted, not to be conquered, not to be saved, but simply to be rested with. The idea comforted him more deeply than he expected. Pause. When night came, the stars gathered above in impossible numbers. They shimmered softly, as if mirroring the glowing fruits of the time tree below. The whole world seemed to inhale, a single, deep, tranquil breath, Finn whispered.
It feels like everything's waiting. Jake, eyes heavy, murmured.
Yeah, waiting to wake. Their voices blended with the hum, fading into the rhythm of a planet asleep, and, somewhere beneath them, time itself dreamed, not of wars or endings, but of moments like this. Two friends lying under a sky that remembered them, a tree that kept their hours safe, and a silence deep enough to cradle eternity. Pause. Before sleep took them, Finn asked quietly. Jake, what happens when time wakes up? Jake smiled without opening his eyes. Then it starts dreaming again, but louder. And the hum beneath them seemed to agree, thrumming softly like laughter in a language too ancient for words. Finn smiled and let his eyes close. Last thing he heard before drifting into sleep was the gentle sound of the wind
moving through the silver leaves, a whisper that said,
Rest, even heroes need to dream. Pause. The first light of dawn came not from the horizon, but from above, a soft, blue glow that pulsed like breath across the heavens. Finn opened his eyes to it and blinked. The world had changed while he slept. The silver trees still shimmered quietly beside him, but the stars had not vanished with the sun. They hung there still, faint but present, like embers in a sea of morning. Jake stirred beside him and stretched until his paws brushed a low-hanging branch.
"Huh," he murmured. "The sky looks awake." Finn smiled drowsily.
Maybe it's dreaming. Jake's ears twitched. Dreaming what? Finn looked up. Us. Pause. Above them, clouds drifted in shapes that seemed almost deliberate. Soft spirals, wings, castles that dissolved as soon as they were seen. The light moved like slow water through them, shimmering with colors that didn't have names. It was as though the sky itself had begun to think. They sat for a long time, just watching the shapes form and fade. There was no wind, and yet the clouds flowed, guided by something unseen. A thought, perhaps, or a wish too large to stay still. Finn rose and looked around. The landscape had softened overnight. The dunes were gentler now, the grass brighter. Even the air felt lighter, as though the earth beneath them had sighed in its sleep. "Jake," he said quietly, "do you feel like—"
We're inside a dream?
Jake looked around lazily. "Could be. The ground's real comfy for a dream," Finn laughed. "Yeah, but maybe that's what dreams are supposed to be. Places that remember comfort." Pause. They began to walk again, following a narrow path that wound through meadows of silver grass. The blades swayed, though there was no wind, moving to some rhythm only they could hear. Above, the sky rippled like a sheet of silk, reflecting their movements. Each step felt weightless, as if the dream were carrying them forward. As they walked, Finn began to notice something strange. The clouds above were mirroring their path, two faint shapes drifting across the blue, echoing every movement they made. He pointed upward.
Jake, look! It's us!
Jake squinted. "Whoa, guess the sky's been watching." "Maybe it's not just watching," Finn said softly.
Or maybe it's remembering too, like the river, like the earth? Jake tilted his head.
"So everything remembers?" Finn nodded slowly. "Everything that dreams does, Pete." They watched their cloud selves drift and shift. Sometimes the shapes blurred. Sometimes they grew clearer, as though emotion itself shaped the mist. When Finn laughed, his reflection shimmered brighter. When Jake yawned, his cloud form stretched lazily across the horizon. The sky, it seemed, was a mirror of their inner world, a place where thought became shape and feeling became light. After a while, they reached a small hill topped with an ancient sundial, cracked and covered with moss. Around it lay scattered stones marked with strange runes. The sundial's shadow pointed not at an hour, but straight upward, as if time itself were looking at the sky. Finn touched the stone. It was warm. "Jake, what if the sun isn't moving today?" Jake blinked. "You mean like it's frozen?" "No," Finn said. "Like it's dreaming too." Jake chuckled softly.
You're really on a roll with this dream talk, bro, Finn smiled. Can you blame me? Everything feels so still.
Like the world's holding its breath between moments. Pause. The stillness wasn't empty. It was full of quiet presence. Finn could feel it in his bones, the way he felt the heartbeat of adventure before it began. The air shimmered faintly, and the clouds above began to take new forms. Not of them this time, but of faces long gone. He recognized some. Marceline's sharp grin, Princess Bubblegum's thoughtful eyes, BMO's tiny, bright smile. They appeared and faded like memories caught in sunlight. Jake whispered,
It's showing us people we love. Finn's voice trembled slightly.
Yeah, maybe it's trying to remind us. Of what? That dreams don't end and that they just change skies. Pause. The words hung there, and even the air seemed to agree. The faces above melted back into cloudlight, their laughter faint but still echoing. They stayed there for a long time, lying beside the sundial, watching the world drift in slow motion. Finn thought about what it meant to dream, not just in sleep, but in life. Every hope, every adventure, every small act of kindness was a kind of dreaming, and maybe the sky was showing them that even when dreams fade, their essence remains. They float above, waiting to be remembered again by hearts that still look upward. Jake rolled onto his back and sighed happily. Man, this is nice. We should have taken more naps during our quests, Finn chuckled. We kind of are now, just cosmic ones, Jake laughed softly. Cosmic naps. I like that. Pause. In the distance, a faint melody began to rise. It wasn't coming from the ground. It came from above. Finn looked up. The clouds were moving rhythmically now, pulsing in soft waves. Each motion seemed to create a tone. Low, distant, beautiful. The sky's singing, Finn whispered. Jake's eyes widened. Dude, That's wild. What's it singing about? Finn closed his eyes, listening. The melody wasn't words, but meaning flowed through it. A gentle message that touched him somewhere deeper than thought. It's singing about remembering joy, he said. About what it's like to feel alive, Jake nodded slowly. That tracks. We've been doing a lot of remembering lately. Finn smiled faintly. Maybe the world's dreaming us because it wants to remember too. Pause. The melody grew softer, turning into a hum. It wrapped around them like a blanket, soothing, timeless, and Finn realized that maybe this was what held the universe together. Not rules or physics, but this quiet dreaming that everything shared. Every stone, every wave, every star, all humming softly in their sleep as the song faded, the sky began to darken. But it wasn't night. It was a deeper kind of dusk, glowing with twilight from within. The clouds turned to gold, then violet, then a blue so deep it seemed endless. Finn whispered, "You ever think the sky dreams us just to see how it feels to be small?" Jake smiled. Maybe. Maybe being small is its way of feeling big. They both laughed quietly. The first stars reappeared. Only this time they moved differently. Instead of fixed points, they swirled slowly, forming patterns like living constellations. Finn reached out as if to touch them.
Jake, look, they're rearranging. Jake followed his gaze.
Guess even stars get bored of standing still. Pause. The constellations formed shapes that looked like familiar scenes. The tree fort, the Candy Kingdom, the distant ice mountains. All of Oo's memories floated above, stitched into the dreaming sky. It felt as though the heavens themselves were keeping a diary, written not in ink, but in light. As the night deepened, the two friends lay back and let their eyes wander through the stories above. Each constellation seemed to move slightly when they blinked, shifting between what was and what might be. Finn whispered, "Do you think we'll ever wake up from this dream?" Jake's voice came soft. "Maybe we already did. Maybe this is what waking looks like when you stop trying to open your eyes." Or Finn thought about that. Maybe awakening wasn't about leaving dreams, but realizing you'd been inside them all along. That everything, even the waking world, was part of a larger sleep shared by everything that exists. He closed his eyes again, feeling the cool night air brush against his face. The sound of the sky's soft breathing lulled him.
Hours passed, or maybe moments.
Time had stopped keeping track. When Finn opened his eyes again, the stars were closer. Not above, but around. Tiny lights floated in the air like fragments of the sky that had decided to come down and rest beside them. Jake reached out a paw, and one of the lights landed on it. It pulsed gently, then drifted upward again. Jake smiled sleepily. "Looks like the sky's dream spilling over." Finn nodded, watching the lights gather around them. Maybe it's trying to share. The air shimmered softly, and Finn felt something. A quiet understanding settling into him. That he and Jake weren't just under the sky.
They were part of it.
Every laugh they'd shared, every tear, every journey, all of it had risen upward, joining the dreaming expanse that now breathed above. They were, in a way, the sky's own memories, oars. The lights began to fade as dawn approached again. The horizon glowed faintly and the clouds softened back into pale morning shapes. Finn turned to Jake, smiling.
"I think the sky's going to rest now," Jake yawned.
"Good, it earned it." They both laughed quietly. Finn looked once more at the brightening heavens. "You think it'll dream about us again?" Jake nodded without hesitation.
"Every night, dude."
Every night. The morning wind stirred, carrying their laughter away, up into the vast and peaceful dreaming sky. Pause. The dawn was still pale when they began to walk again, The light was quiet, not sharp or loud like midday, but soft and searching like the first thought after waking from a dream. The sky had settled, the air had cooled, and in that gentle calm, Finn felt something stirring beneath his heart. A memory, distant but alive. They were crossing a valley carpeted with morning dew. Each blade of grass shimmered like a thread of glass. The air smelled of new rain and something older, the scent of beginnings. Jake yawned beside him. "You've got that look again, dude." Finn smiled faintly. "What look?" "The one that says you're hearing old music." Finn didn't answer right away. The silence between them was filled with tiny sounds. Insects waking, leaves sighing, the faraway murmur of the world. He knew what Jake meant, though. He was hearing something, a faint rhythm echoing through the landscape, soft and steady, like footsteps that once belonged to him. They came upon a grove of tall birch trees. The bark gleamed white as bone, their leaves trembling in the hush of dawn. Finn brushed his hand across one of the trunks, and in that instant he saw it. A flash of blue sky, the tree fort in its first days. A boy with a sword, too large for his hands, and a dog with a grin too wide for the moment. The past played like sunlight flickering through leaves. Jake saw it too. "Whoa, flashback vibes," Finn laughed softly.
Yeah, I remember this place.
"This is where we chased that runaway balloon monster, remember?" Jake grinned. "Oh yeah. You tried to talk to it first, all gentle and heroic, until it bit you and floated off." Finn shook his head, chuckling.
I forgot how brave we were back then, Jake nudged him. Back then?
"You still are." Pause. But Finn didn't feel brave right now. He felt small, not in a bad way, but in the way one feels small standing beside something ancient and kind. The forest around them seemed to hum with quiet recognition, as if it remembered them too. The wind passed between the birches, carrying a faint tune, the same melody that used to drift from Jake's old viola. The notes wove through the trees like gentle laughter. Finn closed his eyes and let it wash over him. Each sound was a thread, pulling him deeper into the echo of that first adventure. He saw it clearly now, the early days when everything was new, when O was strange and endless, when every shadow hid a quest, when courage was simple and joy was loud. He saw himself running through the candy kingdom, helping citizens shaped like sweets, shouting, "Adventure time!" with a voice still bright with wonder. He saw Jake stretching to form bridges, parachutes, shields, laughing all the while. The world had been smaller then, yet somehow larger inside their hearts. And then, as quickly as it came, the vision faded, leaving only the rustle of birch leaves in its place. Finn exhaled slowly. "Feels like forever ago," Jake nodded. "Yeah, but forever doesn't feel so long when you look back slow." Pause. They continued walking. The forest thinned until it opened into a wide clearing where a single stone stood, half buried in moss. It looked unremarkable, but Finn knew it at once. "This is where it started," he whispered. Jake raised a brow. "The first adventure?" Finn nodded. "Yeah, the first real one. The day we swore we'd protect all, even if nobody asked us to." He knelt before the stone. The carvings were faint now, but he could still trace them. The old symbol they'd etched long ago, a simple promise written in childish hands. To fight for fun. To help for love. Jake leaned closer, eyes soft. "Man, we really wrote that?" Finn laughed quietly.
Yeah, you said it was philosophical as heck, Jake chuckled.
"Still is." Pause. They sat beside the stone, watching the light shift through the trees. Neither spoke for a long while. There was no need. The silence carried the weight of memory. Not heavy, but full, like a river brimming with rain. Finn finally said, "You ever wish we could go back? Just once?" Jake smiled, his voice low and warm. Nah, 'cause if we did, we'd just end up right here again. Finn frowned gently. Why's that? Jake looked at him.
'Cause we were never running forward or backward, man.
We were just moving in circles, the kind that always come back to the start. Pause. The idea sat with Finn like sunlight settling on his skin. Circles, not lines.
That was how time really flowed in Ooh, wasn't it?
Not one adventure ending and another beginning, but one eternal round of discovery. He thought of the Lich, of Princess Bubblegum,
Of all the strange beings they'd met, and realized they weren't separate stories.
They were notes in the same endless song. Maybe that was why this place still felt alive. It wasn't the past returning. It was the circle closing gently on itself. Finn reached out and placed his hand on the stone again.
Hey, Jake. Yeah? If time's a circle, does that mean we never really leave anything behind?
Jake thought for a moment. Guess not. We just keep dancing around it till it learns a new step. Pause. Finn smiled. The simplicity of that truth filled him with peace. They rested there until noon. The forest grew bright and golden. Somewhere in the distance, a brook babbled, carrying the sound of laughter that might have been their own. Finn lay back in the grass, watching sunlight flicker through the branches. You know, he said quietly, I think I used to worry about forgetting. Like one day I'd wake up and not remember what all this meant. Jake looked at him. And now? Finn's voice softened. Now I think, maybe the meaning remembers me, Jake smiled.
That's heavy, dude, but I get it. Pause. Finn closed his eyes, listening to the wind.
He could almost hear the echo of his younger self calling out somewhere deep in the forest. Fearless, wide-eyed, alive, and for a heartbeat, he felt both versions of himself breathing together, like two notes in harmony. He understood then that memory wasn't about holding on. It was about listening long enough for the past to speak again. When they finally stood, the air shimmered faintly as though the forest was exhaling. The birches swayed, their leaves scattering silver light across the ground. Finn turned toward the stone one last time.
Guess we should go, Jake nodded.
Yeah, but it'll still be here, waiting for the next version of us. They began to walk, leaving the grove behind. But after a few steps, Finn looked back. For a moment, he thought he saw two figures standing where they had just been. A younger Finn and Jake, grinning, ready to run into the wild. He blinked. And they were gone. Pause. As they walked deeper into the forest, the world seemed to ripple faintly like a dream shifting its pages. The air smelled of sap and rain. Finn spoke softly. You think every adventure echoes forever? Jake's voice came like a warm hum. Yeah, some louder than others. But they all bounce around somewhere. Finn nodded slowly. Then maybe that's what life is. I'm just learning how to listen to the echoes. Jake smiled. Or making sure they sound good before they come back around. They both laughed, their voices carrying into the forest like music. Pause. Eventually, they came to a cliff overlooking a vast plain. From this height, the land looked like a tapestry, rivers glinting like silver threads, forests like green breaths, mountains sleeping beneath veils of mist. Jake whistled. Still beautiful after all this time? Finn nodded. Maybe it's beautiful because of all this time. They stood there quietly, the wind tugging at their cloaks. Below them, they could see the faint outline of paths they had once taken. Faint scars in the grass where battles were fought, where laughter once echoed. The land had healed, but the stories remained, like faint constellations on the earth itself. Finn whispered, It all remembers. Jake's voice was soft. Yeah. Every step we ever took left a song behind. Pause. They stood there until the sun began to set, turning the sky to gold. As the light faded, Finn felt something inside him settle. He realized that maybe adventures didn't end when they stopped moving. Maybe they ended when they stopped noticing the wonder in small things, a reflection in water, a friend's laughter, the hush before nightfall. He turned to Jake. "Thanks for walking with me all this way." Jake smiled. "Always, man. It's what I do best," Finn chuckled. "Nah, what you do best is make everything feel okay." Jake looked at the horizon, his tone soft. "That's 'cause everything is okay when you give it enough time." The sun slipped beneath the edge of the world. The first stars flickered awake. Finn watched them, feeling the faint hum of the circle continuing, of beginnings hidden inside every ending. He whispered, "The first adventure never really ended, did it?" Jake shook his head slowly. "Nope. It just keeps echoing, softer each time until it sounds like peace." And for the first time, Finn understood what peace sounded like. It was the rustle of birch leaves, the hum of rivers remembering, the laughter of a friend who'd been there from the start. It was the sound of the world breathing, and knowing it didn't have to rush anymore. Pause. They began to descend the hill as night gathered. The stars above pulsed faintly, echoing their footsteps. Each echo a memory, each memory a beginning. Night had fallen like silk. The stars shimmered softly above, patient and unblinking, as though they had been waiting for Finn and Jake to notice them again. The air was cool now, gentle against their skin, carrying the scent of pine, damp earth, and faraway rain. They walked quietly side by side, down a narrow trail that wound through fields glistening with moonlight. Somewhere ahead, faint and flickering, tiny golden lights hovered, hundreds of them, floating in the dark like drifting souls. Finn stopped, his breath catching. "Lanterns," he whispered. Jake tilted his head. "Lanterns of tomorrow," he said softly.
"I haven't seen these since forever." Finn frowned slightly.
"Lanterns of tomorrow?" Jake nodded. "Yeah, the legend says they're born from people's dreams, the ones they're too shy to speak out loud. When night comes, they float out into the world, looking for someone to believe in them." Finn stared at the glowing specks ahead. Lights moving slow, almost alive. "Do they ever find who they're looking for?" Jake smiled faintly. "Sometimes. But even when they don't, they still shine till morning." Pause. As they moved closer, the lanterns became clearer. Each one was a delicate orb made of faint, golden smoke. They drifted lazily, pulsing softly as though breathing. Some floated low to the ground, brushing the tips of the grass. Others rose toward the stars, vanishing into the velvet dark. Finn reached out to touch one. It flickered warmly against his palm. Weightless, but real. He could feel its quiet hum, like the heartbeat of something fragile and hopeful. Inside the lantern, faint shapes moved. Images forming and dissolving in the light. A tree fort.
"A sword, a laughing face," he whispered. "It's showing me."
Jake leaned closer. "What's it showing?" "My own dream," Finn said softly. "Not the kind I sleep through and the kind I almost forgot." He saw himself older, calmer. The sword lay sheathed at his side. Around him were small fires people gathered, listening to stories. No battles, no monsters. Just peace. He blinked, and the image faded. The lantern drifted upward, joining the others. Jake said nothing, just watched with that quiet, knowing smile. Pause. They sat down in the grass, surrounded by the drifting lights. It felt like sitting inside a slow constellation, one that changed shape with every breath. Finn gazed upward.
"You think these are really dreams?"
Jake shrugged, his voice a low hum. "Dreams, wishes, memories, they're all kind of the same, right? Stuff that floats around till it finds a home." Finn nodded slowly. "Then I guess we're walking through everyone's unfinished hopes," Jake chuckled softly. "Yeah, it's like swimming in possibility soup." They both laughed, the sound blending gently with the breeze. Oars. The field stretched endlessly, the lanterns thinning out toward the horizon. Finn stood and began to walk among them, his boots brushing against the damp grass. Each light he passed whispered a faint note. Together, they formed a melody so soft it could barely be heard. It was the sound of thousands of small wishes, humming in harmony. Finn closed his eyes and let the music pass through him. For a moment, he felt the weight of every hope, the quiet yearning of the world itself,
asking to be remembered. He thought of all the beings he'd met. The candy people.
The Flame Princess, Marceline, BMO, each one carrying their own unspoken wish. Some for love, some for purpose, some simply to rest. Finn's heart ached, but gently, like a sigh that had waited too long to be exhaled. He whispered, "Maybe that's what being alive means, carrying a lantern through the dark."
"Hoping someone sees it," Jake's voice came from behind him, soft and sure.
"And maybe being a friend means noticing that light before it goes out." Pause. They kept walking until the lanterns grew thicker again, forming a glowing river across the field. The air shimmered faintly as though time itself had slowed to watch. Jake's eyes widened. "Whoa, haven't seen this many since the Age of Heroes." Finn tilted his head. "The what?" Jake grinned. "Long time ago. Every lantern that ever glowed used to drift toward this place, the Valley of Tomorrow. They said if enough light gathered, the world could start again. Like a reset made out of hope." Finn still.
"Did it ever happen?"
Jake chuckled. "Nah, guess the world decided to just keep moving forward instead." Finn smiled faintly.
"Maybe it still could," Jake shrugged.
"Maybe it already does. Every time someone forgives or helps or believes again, that's a reset, right?" Pause. They reached the center of the valley where the light was brightest. Thousands of lanterns hovered in a slow spiral, circling a single, larger one at the center, glowing with an ancient, golden warmth. Finn felt a strange pull, like his heart recognized it. Jake's eyes softened. "That's the lantern of the first tomorrow." Finn looked at him. "What's inside it?" Jake smiled wistfully. "Nobody knows. Some say it's every tomorrow that never came true.
Others say it's the first dream the world ever had. Still waiting to wake up." Finn stepped closer.
The air around it was calm and endless. The light wasn't bright. It was tender, the kind of glow that made shadows disappear without a fight. He whispered, "What if it's ours?" Jake tilted his head. "Ours?"
"Yeah," Finn said softly.
"What if it's the dream we never finished, all the things we said we'd do, all the places we said we'd see? What if they're all still waiting inside there?" Jake's voice lowered. "Then maybe it's time we look." Pause. Finn reached out his hand. The surface of the lantern rippled like warm water. For a heartbeat, he felt everything. The laughter, the battles, the quiet moments under starlight. Then the light deepened, showing something new. A glimpse of two figures walking, older, slower, but still together. The world around them peaceful. No monsters, no quests. Just time. Finn felt tears in his eyes, but not from sadness. He turned to Jake. "We never really stop adventuring, do we?" Jake grinned. "Nope. We just start adventuring inward." Pause. They sat in silence for a while, watching the big lantern pulse like a heartbeat. Around them, the smaller ones began to drift closer, orbiting softly. Finn whispered, "It feels alive." Jake nodded. "Maybe it is."
"Maybe it's what keeps the world dreaming," Finn smiled.
"Then we should leave it be." "Yeah," Jake said. "Dreams are fragile when you wake 'em too soon." They stood, the light brushing against their faces like a gentle goodbye. As they walked away, the lanterns began to rise, slowly, gracefully, until the night sky filled with thousands of new stars. For a moment it was impossible to tell where the sky ended and the earth began. Pause. Finn looked back one last time.
You think they'll remember us?
Jake's eyes glowed faintly in the dark. Nah, but they'll remember what we stood for. Finn smiled softly. That's enough. The lanterns drifted higher, scattering into constellations. The valley dimmed behind them, replaced by the quiet whisper of grass and the rhythm of their footsteps. Jake stretched his arms lazily. So where to next, hero? Finn thought for a moment, then looked up at the sky. Wherever the light goes when it stops being seen, Jake grinned.
That's poetic as heck. Finn laughed quietly.
Guess the lanterns rubbed off on me. Pause. As they left the valley, dawn began to stir at the horizon, faint blue creeping into the black. The stars shimmered, then slowly faded, making room for another day. Finn turned to Jake. The lanterns of tomorrow? He murmured. They're not really about the future, are they? Jake shook his head. Nope, they're about the courage to believe there is one, Finn exhaled softly. And maybe that's the real magic, not knowing what's next, but walking toward it anyway. Jake smiled.
That's the spirit, man.
Classic Finn. Pause. As the light grew, the last few lanterns dissolved into morning mist. But their warmth lingered, in the air, in the soil, in the quiet between their words, and somewhere far above, unseen, a single lantern drifted higher than the rest, carrying two tiny echoes, laughter and peace. The sea waited at the edge of the world, silent and endless. It shimmered like liquid glass, catching every color of dawn, rose, gold, and faint silver. Each wave moved as though in slow thought, carrying reflections of stars that still lingered from the night before. Finn and Jake stood at the cliff's edge, the wind brushing softly against them. The air smelled of salt, old wood, and something faintly sweet, the scent of dreams that had drifted too far. Jake exhaled a long, slow breath.
Man, I forgot how big it is, Finn nodded.
Sea of resting stars, he murmured. I heard stories. They say when a star gets tired of shining, it comes here to sleep. Jake's eyes softened.
Then we should be real quiet.
Wouldn't want to wake 'em. They both smiled. The world below glowed with a faint, trembling light, as if thousands of tiny hearts were still beating just beneath the surface. Pause. They descended the slope slowly, feet sinking into cool, pale sand. The sound of the waves was deep but soothing, a rhythm older than memory. Every now and then, the tide would pull back and reveal specks of light scattered along the shore. Finn knelt and picked one up. It was smooth and warm, like a river stone, but glowing faintly within, a fragment of starlight. Jake crouched beside him, eyes wide. Dude, that's beautiful. Finn turned it over in his hand. Feels like it's breathing, Jake smiled softly. Maybe it's dreaming.
Even stars got to rest sometime, Finn nodded.
Do you think they ever wake up again? Jake thought for a moment. Maybe not the same way. Maybe when someone looks at the sky and wishes, that's the star waking up for a little bit. Pause. They walked along the water's edge, the sand whispering under their feet. With every step, faint light flickered behind them, like footprints made of stardust. The sea stretched out into eternity, so calm it almost looked solid. The horizon was invisible, blurred by mist. Finn felt small again, but peacefully so. He said softly, "Do you ever wonder what happens when everything ends? When even the stars are done shining?" Jake's voice was warm.
Nah, I think endings are just naps.
The universe rests, then dreams itself back awake. Finn smiled faintly. Dreams again, Jake nodded. Always comes back to dreams, dude. Pause. After a while, they came upon something half buried in the sand. A small wooden boat, old but sturdy, rocking gently in the tide. Its hull was carved with strange symbols that glowed faintly blue. Jake whistled. Looks like it's been waiting for somebody. Finn ran a hand along the side.
Feels familiar. They climbed in without a word.
The boat drifted forward as if guided by an unseen hand. The oars dipped themselves into the water, moving with patient grace. The further they went, the quieter the world became. The air grew still, the waves soft as breathing. Above, the stars reflected in perfect clarity, as if the sky had lowered itself into the sea. Finn whispered, "It's hard to tell what's above and what's below." Jake leaned back lazily.
That's the secret, man.
They're the same thing. Pause. Time seemed to stretch and dissolve as they floated. The stars beneath the water flickered gently, each one pulsing in its own rhythm. Finn leaned over the side and gazed into the depths. He saw not just light, but faint shapes moving beneath. Memories, maybe, or echoes of old adventures. He saw the Ice King's crown, the Candy Kingdom glowing in twilight, BMO playing a tune. Then he saw himself, standing younger, sword raised, eyes full of courage. The reflection smiled up at him. Jake noticed. "What do you see?" Finn whispered. "Every version of me that ever was." Jake nodded softly. "Yeah, the sea's good at that. Shows you what you've been."
And what you've become. Finn touched the water lightly, sending ripples through his reflection.
The image blurred and faded.
"I feel like I've been so many people," Jake grinned. "That's the point, buddy."
You're supposed to outgrow yourself a few times before you rest. Pause. The boat carried them farther until the shore was gone.
Only the horizon remained, soft, blue, endless.
The stars below glowed brighter now, like lanterns under glass. Finn looked down again, but this time, instead of faces, he saw doors, thousands of them, floating beneath the surface, some open, some closed, some leading into darkness, others into blinding light. He said quietly, "What are those?" Jake's tone grew almost reverent.
Paths, man. Every choice anyone ever made, every story that could have been.
When the stars get tired, they come here and rest beside their favorite version of the story. Finn stared, mesmerized. "So even the stars have alternate lives?" Jake chuckled softly. "Guess nobody escapes the multiverse." They both laughed. A soft, tired laugh that felt like exhaling years of adventure. Pause. The boat began to slow. Ahead of them, a great shape loomed beneath the water. A massive, sleeping star, its surface cracked with age, glowing with ancient warmth. It was larger than the tree fort, maybe even larger than the Ice Kingdom. Finn could feel its pull, not like gravity, but like affection, a deep, wordless kindness. Jake's voice softened. "That's the first star, the one that lit the sky before anyone had names for things." Finn's eyes widened. "It's still alive?" "Barely," Jake said. "It's been dreaming a long, long time. Every time it breathes, a new galaxy gets born."
Every time it sighs, another one fades away. Finn stared in awe.
The great light beneath the sea pulsed once. Slow, heavy, and gentle. He felt it echo through his chest, like a heartbeat shared between them. Jake whispered, "Careful, man. Stars like that remember everything." Pause. Finn closed his eyes. The hum of the sleeping star filled his mind. A sound so deep it didn't just reach his ears, but the very edges of his thoughts. In that sound, he felt every story woven together, the joy, the grief, the stillness between breaths. He saw the tree fort again, empty now, but not lonely. He saw the Candy Kingdom thriving, the Ice King's crown lying quietly in snow, BMO still singing to no one in particular. He saw himself and Jake walking forever, never lost, always somewhere between adventure and peace. And then he understood. The sea of resting stars wasn't about endings at all. It was about return. Everything light, love, laughter, eventually found its way back here to rest, to dissolve, to dream again. Pause. When he opened his eyes, tears had gathered without sadness. He looked at Jake. "Do you think we'll end up here one day?" Jake leaned back, smiling softly. "Nah, we'll probably float for a while first. Then we'll drop by, say hi to the stars, and drift right back into the next dream." Finn laughed quietly.
Sounds nice, Jake nodded. Yeah, nothing really ends, man.
"It just changes shape, like water, like light, like us." Finn looked down at the glowing sea and felt peace settle over him. Pause. The boat began to turn, guided again by some invisible tide. The sleeping star faded into the distance, its glow blending with the dawn rising above. Finn took one last look at the sea. "You think the stars ever miss the sky?" Jake chuckled. "Maybe, but I bet the sky misses them more." They both smiled. As the boat reached shallow water, the sand beneath shimmered faintly, a reflection of everything they'd seen, everything they'd let go. They stepped out, the tide brushing their ankles. Cool and kind, Finn looked at Jake and whispered,
"I think I understand now." Jake raised an eyebrow. "Understand what?" Finn smiled.
"Why we keep going, why we never stop walking. It's not to reach the end, it's to find the quiet between things." Jake nodded. The space where stars sleep as the sun rose, spilling gold across the sea. The stars vanished beneath the light, not in defeat, but in peace. Their glow melted into the waves, becoming part of the morning. Finn and Jake stood there for a long while, watching. No need for words. The silence said everything. Finally, Jake stretched and said softly, "Ready to go home?" Finn looked at him, then back at the endless sea. "I think we already are," and the waves whispered in agreement.